doing my doctorate in political science at NYU in the late 60s, and the women's movement surfaced. And I started to say, this is the most exciting thing I've ever heard, because I'd heard of civil rights, gay rights, but suddenly women were saying, I don't want to be confined to just being a homemaker or a secretary. And so it's like, why shouldn't women be encouraged to do everything they possibly can do? And at that point in time, I saw a lot of women marrying men that they weren't completely in love with, but the man earned a fair amount. And so I thought, that's just a form of prostitution extended over a lifetime. How depressed that must make a woman. And it's not going to be good for a man either. He never knows whether he's loved for who he is or loved for what he has. And he's afraid to give up producing because he's afraid to lose love. And so women who were successful, to me, appeared to be women who would free men from having to be all, wrapped up in just being the only breadwinner and supporting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, which, it's one thing to support yourself. When you're supporting 5 people, you don't have the freedom to question your boss because you're supporting 5 people.
The first issue of feminism was to say, just because I'm a woman, maybe I don't want to spend my life raising children. Don't force me into that role against my will. So they looked at men and said, well, you're not forced to raise children. You don't have any issue. But for men, the traditional sex role was not raising children. For us, the traditional sex role was to be a provider, a protector, and to initiate relationships. Each of us has traditional sex roles. Don't force us to carry out those traditional sex roles.
We have the same rules set up for men that they've always lived by, that you need to protect and provide at any cost. But we've changed everything where it concerns women. They now have access to everything men have always had access to education, to work, to whatever they want to do. But they're not the ones driving the semis. And they're not the ones in the coal mines. You don't hear the National Organization for Women complaining that there is just not enough female ditch diggers. It is still men carrying the lion's share for what it takes to operate and maintain this society. And it is still the expectation that if somebody's going to go down with the ship, it's going to be men.
Flexibility in roles is where we should be all headed. Any men's rights activist that I would support the portions of the women's movement that is encouraging women to have more flexibility in roles.
So where do the men's movement and feminism disagree?
Well, only on the fundamental belief that the women's movement says men are the oppressors, that we are involved in a patriarchal world in which men invented the rules to benefit men.
This, in a larger perspective, patriarchy is the result of gender roles and not the vice versa.
Traditionally, women's power and responsibility has been in the reproductive sphere, while men's power and responsibility was in the productive sphere. You have to reproduce to continue the species, and you have to produce to feed people so that they can reproduce. So, it's like they work together.
And most cultures divvied up roles because women were responsible for childbirth and were more likely to breastfeed. They're not more likely to, they did the breastfeeding. They tended to be involved in the role of raising children. Men tended to be involved in the role of raising money or making a killing of the animals or making a killing on Wall Street. But those were our obligations.
So that's why industry was male-dominated and government was male-dominated, because that was our job.
And so what we call patriarchy is men giving into the expected roles that they're supposed to give into, and many of those roles are very harmful. Working exceptionally long hours difficult hours, dangerous jobs, getting killed on the job. Even politics, a lot of people describe as masochism.
Imagine what it takes to be a successful politician. Imagine how much of your personal life that you give up, how much you work, how much privacy that you sacrifice, how much freedom in your day-to-day life that goes out the window. There are more men willing to do those things than there are women.
We got time for everybody.
But also, just because men are the ones, for instance, writing the laws in general, doesn't mean that the laws are protecting men.
You hear about patriarchy, right? All the evils of the world's from patriarchy, but we're the ones dying, you know? And we die for you guys, you know, to protect our families, our friends.
In every society that's ever existed, women have had privilege and protection that men did not.
For example, we never hear about how men were excluded from the Forced Labor Convention of 1930 for years. The Forced Labor Convention was an international treaty that banned slavery and forced servitude, but it made an exception for able-bodied males ages 18 to 45. Eventually, they got rid of that, but there was still an exemption for prisoners and military, which is 90% male.
Stop pretending that you're oppressed and men are your oppressors. It's a lie, and it's a hurtful lie, and it's a hateful lie, and it's wrong.
You talk a lot about the red pill in A Voice for Men. What is the red pill?
Oh, it's sort of a cultural slogan. It comes from the movie The Matrix, where the character Neo is given the choice between a red pill and a blue pill.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And if he swallows the red pill, the scales will be peeled back from his eyes. He will see everything that he hasn't been able to see. And if he takes the blue pill, he'll just go back to sleep and live in his sort of unaware, semi-comatose state forever and probably be a lot happier. It's a pretty apt analogy.
So what is the blue pill in this world?
Well, the blue pill is the paradigm that most people live by, that men have all the power, that they've always had all the power, that domestic violence is a problem that's committed by men against women only, that sexual assaults are only committed by men against women, that women don't make the same money for the same work as men. Teach men not to rape. Only men can stop rape. Men commit domestic violence. We need to stop violence against women instead of just stopping violence. That is feminist training.